Polypede works here. And we have some early concepts of how Luffy looked back in the day when drawn by a 19-year-old Oda. Big thanks to Pew Piece for translating this for the community. Now, his name, back in the day, was Monkey D. Pow. So, with Luffy's name being Monkey D. Pow, we know that the surname Monkey was always on Oda's mind, and the middle initial D was always going to be a thing. Those things are important to take away. So, moving to the corner, we see the words stretch and sleep, which means that Oda always had on his mind that Luffy would always be able to stretch. Now, taking from that, I want to turn your attention towards his wardrobe. He is wearing an undershirt that has sleeves, striped sleeves. I think this could be a visual cue for him having the ability to stretch. And I think he picked this up from a mentor of his who he assisted under. And that man's name was Nobuhiro Watsuki. Nobuhiro Watsuki is the mangaka behind Rurouni Kenshin. In Rurouni Kenshin, there's a guy named Hanya, and Hanya had striped sleeves as well. In combat, these striped sleeves were to deceive his opponent into thinking that his arms were shorter than they actually were. So in a weird way, they were to deceive the opponent from his reach being longer than it was. With that being said, I think this translates back into the earlier designs of Luffy here, because I think the striped sleeves here were supposed to emphasize that Luffy's arms can stretch. There's something special about his arms. But I think that is a holdover from someone who Oda assisted under. Now, getting to the bandana, this is obviously a reference to devil fruits because of the swirls, but what the bandana could also suggest is that Luffy at one point could have been a thief, but I'm starting to think that that is more of a reference to the woman under the word thief as opposed to being attributed to Luffy himself. But the bandana that he's wearing could also be called a hokurumi, which is the Japanese bandana often associated with thieves in Japanese media. So the swirls could be a reference to that, and then over time they just got boiled down into being a part of the entire devil fruit concept. But taking the whole outfit in, you know who this is? It's not even Luffy, it's Usopp. Everything that Oda had for Luffy planned originally got reworked into Usopp, because Usopp, from the pre-time skip, has a bandana. Though with his bandana, it's more of like a grid pattern. It's not swirls, but still the fact that both of them have patterned bandanas is something to take into note. On top of that, Usopp has always worn a striped wristband on his arm. I think, too, the sleeves reworked themselves into that design element for Usopp as well. No one else has that. And then going down to the swashbuckler-looking shoes, that, too, might have been reworked into being an Usopp-themed thing, because Usopp has very simple shoes in the pre-time skip. Now, what's also very interesting about this is that earlier concepts of Usopp depict him as a more piratey character. So maybe based on what Oda had already planned for Luffy, he kind of went back to some old sketches and started to simplify Usopp's design when he had in mind what kind of character Usopp was going to be. Now, moving off of Luffy for a second, we have this old guy in the bottom left-hand corner who was supposed to be Mary. And next to Mary, it says Spirit of the Rubber Tree, 5008 years old. So from this, I'm guessing Mary was going to be the spirit within the tree that Luffy got his powers from, because originally, and we've known about this for a while, the Gum Gum tree was supposed to be the only devil fruit bearing tree in the series, and Luffy was going to be the only one with powers as far as we know. So perhaps the spirit within the tree was supposed to be this old man, which is funny because we have Mary, the guy, and then Going Mary, the ship. The ship, of course, is made of wood. trees are the suppliers of wood. So it's kind of funny that in a roundabout way we come back to the same point with this. And here, what's interesting too is that we see that the man who supposedly is the spirit of the tree is 5,008 years old. So again, 5 is an important factor when it comes to Luffy and his fruit, because as you know, 5 and 6 has always been attributed to Luffy throughout the series. And then we know the world government has been chasing the Gum Gum fruit for 800 years. So 8 is also an important number, I guess, as well, but to a much lesser degree. But moving on. But also, you get to see this is the start of Oda's laughing style being established, because I believe this is the old man saying, "An abandoned child, wah ha 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 ha. Isn't that just fine? Wah ha ha ha." So yeah, this is the start of the laughing style being established. So another interesting part to take from this is that there's an axe presented in this drawing. Now, we also have a early concept of what will become Anne, then what will become Nami later, in a woman named Rizuru. And from the early concept of Nami that was released years ago, I'm going to take a guess and say that the axe belonged to her, which is a very interesting thing that has never really come to fruition of the Nami character holding an axe, but maybe it will in the future. But I find that very funny that even as early as 19, he's always wanted someone carrying an axe in the series. Following that, we have another old guy to the right. I don't know what he's about. He's just kind of a random drawing. He doesn't particularly look like anyone we've seen in the series. Kind of gives me a Zoro vibe. Not too sure, but yeah, interesting. Don't know about him. I don't know about him. Above Rizuru, we have a baseball cap, and next to the baseball cap has the word thief. So this probably means that he always depicted his female lead to be a thief of some sort. At least that's what I'm getting. Since it's right next to her, I don't think that was going to be an attribute of Luffy. I think that was going to be an attribute of his female lead. So Rizuru, I'm assuming, turned into Anne, and then Anne became Nami. So the girl was always going to be the thief character. Don't know about the baseball cap, because no one on the crew currently wears a baseball cap. So I don't know where that came from, but we know what headwear is important. So maybe this is signs that he was always thinking about a hat, and then eventually the bandana that Luffy wears got translated to Usopp, and then I guess you could say Zoro as well, and then Luffy started wearing a hat, and then that hat became a straw hat later on. Don't know. To the left, we also see what was stolen was an apple, not a melon. That's good. And then we have, it was better than the worst. If that's the worst, then all right, time for a new journey. So the first quote, I think, is relating back to the Gum Gum fruit itself, or the Gomu Gomu no Mi, because the Gomu Gomu no Mi looks like a type of melon, specifically a Yubari King, which is this big green Japanese melon that kind of looks like a huge cantaloupe that is native to Yubari, Hokkaido, which is a small city in Japan next to another city called Sapporo. So yeah, the Gum Gum fruit is just a big Japanese melon. So that's why I think this quote is here. It's a reference to the fruit itself being a melon. Now, the second quote, I think, is just relating back to the idea of adventure that would end up being prominent in Romance Dawn and then prominent in One Piece. This also shares the same spirit as the box quote, which says, "People who can laugh off their weaknesses are the strongest." This is a principle that has been taken to One Piece because, of course, a lot of the characters have unique laughs, and most characters have weaknesses or trauma that they are dealing with, and they power through that by laughing and doing their best to complete the goals that they have set off to do, whether those characters be good or evil. So that's about all I can glean from this early concept. I find it very interesting that so many things were planned out so early, and I can't wait to see where the axe is going. That's always been the big thing, because we've had axes in the series, but none in the main cast. So I can't wait to see if that actually goes anywhere. But with that being said, give me your thoughts.